This is Liz from Grow Your Mindset. Welcome to our Mindset in You interview, season 2. And I'm ecstatic today to have Phil Garner with us, who's a dear friend, and we've invited him to come and have a little bit of chat about what he does and how he's involved in education, and also in terms of mental health and well-being, of course. So, Phil, welcome to our interview today. A bit of a mad rush back from Harrogate, but yeah, you made it.
My heart has stopped pounding now.
Brilliant. Okay, so Phil, could you kindly introduce yourself? Pardon?
My heart is still beating, which is at my age is quite a significant step forward.
That's good. That's good. And no defib needed. Okay, so would you kindly introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your previous role and your current role in education?
Unfortunately, I started teaching back in 1973, an absolute eon ago, and worked in state schools for about half my teaching career, moving to independent education when I became head, rather surprisingly to me, I'm not quite sure why they picked me, but they did, at King Edward's School in Bath, where I changed the school there with Peter Winter, my colleague, the head of the senior school, from a boys-only school, which it had been for hundreds of years, to a co-educational school. And many of the old boys and teachers and parents thought the world would end and the sky would fall in, but it didn't. And it was a great success, and it's a fabulous school. And I'm sure those of you people that listen who are in that area will know King Edward School Bath. I then moved to, I started to do a doctorate in education, which remains unfinished in the loft, which I think a lot of doctorates do, on improving children's attitude to school through teaching dance. I'm not a natural dancer. If you could see the full profile, you'd realise. But enjoyed doing the research into that and I started to think about setting up a school then with dance as a kind of focal point. I then became head at Askham House School, a prep school in Newcastle upon Tyne, and in my true style, I kind of moved that from a 13 plus transfer prep school up to an 18 plus school. It became known as Newcastle School for Boys, but all the boys, when I was head, all danced. They all had dancing lessons, and we had dance clubs, and they hated me for it. But I think ultimately they probably saw the benefit of it, and many of them, which I've spoken to later, said how much they enjoyed that dance opportunity. And then I did set up, or tried to set up a free school on my own, again with this dance and performance arts as my kind of theme. But the government seemed peculiarly resistant to having a free school which focused on dance and performing arts and creativity. They wanted it to focus on subjects.
Yes.
Why? But you know, the government, that's what they do. So in the end, I collaborated with another group, and we set up the West Newcastle Academy Free School in the most disadvantaged ward in Newcastle, in the West End. And with a focus on Forest School. And for those of you that are more familiar with younger children, the Reggio Emilia, the Italian kind of child-centred approach. So it couldn't be further away from Newcastle School for Boys and King Edward School at Bath, but thriving, and it's a fantastic school. But again, the government couldn't quite get their head around it, but we fought and we won. Then I did a couple of jobs for TS Global with interim headships in schools where, for whatever reason, the head was either in between posts or had left or was sick or whatever. And during that time, I was approached by Dave Winfield, the founder of the Independent Schools Portal, and asked if I'd do some work with them, which I willingly and gratefully did. And now I'm a kind of director, if you like, of Independent Schools Portal, and that's still going along nicely. I also work with students going to American universities. I taught in Seattle, Washington for a time.
Wow.
And I now work with about 100 students who are considering undergraduate study in the United States. So working with a couple of girls at the moment who are just applying to Harvard. and quite a few students who are looking at sports scholarships. So a kind of rich and varied history. And now we just set up Rocket Learn, which I'll talk to you about later. I hope we'll have an opportunity to just look at Rocket Learn in a little bit more detail.
Definitely.
I'm kind of passionate about learning. I'm 69 coming up now, and still unstinted enthusiasm for how people, children particularly, but adults as well, how they learn.
I mean, your passion in terms of that comes through, but your resilience and your determination in terms of the roles that you've just talked about really comes through. Have you got any Billy Elliot prodigies that have ever come through your dancing?
It was interesting. When I was at Garner school, I had a couple of boys there, and who were very good sports people, and I taught them. And then I met them when they're in their 20s, and they asked me what I was doing, and I told them about my dance project, the degree, and the free school, and both of them said, "Mr. Garner, don't tell anybody, but we both took up tap dancing because of your kind of passion for dancing, and we are absolutely passionate tap dancers."
Wow.
So I think it's one of these things, like a hidden curriculum, as you'll know. That which goes on at school that you don't anticipate will go on at school, or in education or in life in general. The impact you have on children, I think, and young people. I think when you hear from them later in life. I went back to Birmingham where I started my teaching career, and a former colleague said, "Oh, I'm going to meet a couple of your former pupils that you taught at Linden School in Solihull, where I started my teaching career, and you taught them, and it'd be great to have a catch up." So I went into Wetherspoons in Solihull, and I was introduced to these two old men. I thought I never taught you in my life. And then I realised, of course, it was. And, I still imagine them as 15-year-old schoolboys. And then they were 60-year-old, grandparents. And that came as a bit of a solitary shock to me, I have to say.
It is. I mean, in terms of meeting old pupils, it can be a bit of a shocker when they're looking a similar age.
I know when I retired from Newcastle School for Boys, left Newcastle School for Boys, somebody said to me, "What are you most looking forward to?" I said, "Not hiding behind the fridge in Waitroses to avoid meeting current pupils." You know what it's like. You're walking down the high street and you hear this, "Hello, sir," come bellowing across.
Yeah.
And everybody's going, "Oh, teacher, he's a teacher."
Brilliant. Well, you talked there about your passion for learning and how children learn. Now, we came to contact with you through the Nexus networking event, and we hit it off straight away. It was almost like we were drawn together like magnets. Okay, so what is it that drew you to us in terms of the connection that we have in terms of our value in education and your vision for schools and developing that particular ethos? What is it that brought us together, do you think?
Yeah, interesting. I think for those that don't know about the next working events, you were there with one or two other providers, if you like, who were then giving short demonstrations, talks and presentations to a group of senior leaders from schools in the northwest. It was at Stockport Grammar School, if I
That's
remember.
right, yeah.
My job was to kind of facilitate the meeting, just to make sure you had your table and your hot Wi-Fi and everything was going well. So as I go around, and it is when I don't know, when I've been a head teacher on a recruitment panel, I think you can always spot people who have a genuine passion and a genuine and instinctive understanding of learning and teaching. And I've seen some people who've prepared magnificently for interviews, and they say that no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy, and survives first contact with children if they can't do it. Something gives them away. It's a chemistry, and I felt that you two had a chemistry. And just talking to you and Gemma, I kind of understood instinctively that you two had a chemistry, but other people have a passion for their product or their service or their computer program. You had a passion for learning, and that's a different. And I think that just came across in our very short conversation that we
Yeah.
had there. But subsequently talking to people who've worked with you, and in the presentation that you did for us later on. And I think that real chemistry that you had with each other, I think, is also quite important. And I know that when you come to meet children or for adults, that you've got that ability to convey the way that they can improve. I think that's one of the problems often with we kind of feel that if we give children a particular strategy or something, that somehow that they'll pick it up and run with it. But I think you had that ability to kind of nudge them forward, to give them the confidence, the self-esteem, the belief, the right attitude. You know, growth mindset on its own isn't enough. To tell children you can do better is not enough. You've got to show them how they can do better, what it is they need to do to. You know, if you tried to teach me to draw a horse, you know, instinctively I would have a fixed mindset about that. I'd say, there's no way can I draw a horse. But if you said, try this, try these little tips, try this nuance, have a look, watch this video, sit with this, talk to this person, how have they done it? It wouldn't be a Stubbs when it came out, but it would certainly be better, because you kind of give those, as I say, nuances really. And I think it's a semantic difference between growth mindset and grow your mindset. I think that the growth mindset is a bit like fixed IQ, isn't it? I am where I am and I can't move from there. But you don't. You say grow your mindset. You can grow it. You can move it forward.
Yeah, that ability to develop.
Fan of Guy Claxton. I don't know if you've come across.
Oh yes, yeah.
I'm sure you have. But he was my master's degree supervisor at the University of Bristol. He won't remember, but I always remember his 4 R's of education: that resourcefulness, resilience, reciprocity, a word at that time I didn't even know what it meant, and reflectiveness. And I think if we can teach children, I think one of Guy Claxton said, all you need to teach children is to know what to do when they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you and Gemma kind of, that came across in just that few minutes, and listening to one of your presentations to that group of deputy heads and head teachers and senior teachers there, that your passion for instilling in children a belief, an attitude. And my feeling often is what was it Henry Ford said? If you think you can. If you think you can't. You're
right. Yeah.
And I think that's what, and a lot of children just think they can't.
Yeah.
And they're told frequently that they can't. And
yeah.
I think we teach, okay, and I know that magical word "yet" is important, but it's not just you can do it yet. You can't do it yet, but if you try these things, these nuances, these suggestions, these strategies, you'll move forward. And that
definitely. The power's not in the word, the power is in what you do in between attempts. That's where your power is.
Yes. And have you come across Professor Sugata Mitra? Have you come across him?
Who, sorry?
Sugata Mitra, Professor Sugata Mitra.
No, who's this?
You should make a note of him and watch his he came to fame. He's a professor at the University of Newcastle here, but he's an Indian by birth. And he, many years ago, embedded computers in walls in very remote villages in India, and just left them, and watched how children who had no access to telephones, there were no mobile phones much in those days, televisions, certainly not computers, how they interacted with the computer and how they taught themselves, but more importantly, how they taught each other.
Yeah.
So he then developed this into this self-organized learning environments where children learn in small groups. And that kind of giving them, and I think he calls it the grandmother complex, where adults just kind of look over children. And that's lovely, dear. Tell me a little bit about that. You know, explain, how does that work? I don't understand that. Can you tell me about that? And then children kind of explore these things.
Yeah.
And one of the things I say at meetings, I just have a conversation with a 17-year-old girl who's going to American University, and I say to her, this is a rhetorical question, Anna. Do you have a mobile phone? Well, not many 17-year-olds don't have a mobile phone. So she says, yes, of course I do. I said, and who taught you how to use it? Nobody. I taught myself. I learned from friends. I listened to what other people. No teacher, no parent taught them. So, and we can all do marvelous things. I think that's the thing that I always feel humbled by at the West Newcastle Academy Free School. These children who come from a disadvantaged background, many of them are first or second or third generation immigrants to this country from different parts of the world, but speak English fluently.
Yeah.
As well as whatever language, whether it be Hindi or Farsi or whatever. They speak them both, and act as translators for their parents. They don't, these children can do magnificent things. They just need to be shown. They just need to be given a little bit of
guidance, a bit of self-belief.
Facilitating, rather than say, this is what we have to, this is what you do, this is how you do it, and this is what it will look like when you've done it.
Yeah.
If I was Prime Minister, I'd ban worksheets. Completely. I don't get the point of them at all.
No, it almost hinders creativity because you're going to get a blanket set of work that's the same.
Do you know the other thing I'd ban, Liz, if I could, is that
go on.
You go on a school trip. I know with COVID, and we might get round to COVID in a bit, but school trips have been terminated. But school trips are the most important thing. The first thing these two 60-year-old former pupils talked about were football trips and field trips. They didn't talk about the fabulous science lessons I didn't teach them. They talked about the school trips. But the other thing I'd ban is when children go on a school trip, is when they get back to school the next day, having to write about it.
Yeah.
That's fundamentally illegal. Nothing wrecks a school trip more than having to write about it.
Yeah, or after any holiday, after any time away from school, let's write about it.
Yeah, write about it. What did you do on your holidays? Well, and then some children say nothing. Well, some didn't do much.
Yeah.
Like and the other thing that should be banned is or not banned, but advised parents not to do it, is ask their children what they did in school that day.
Yeah.
What did you do in school? Nothing. Sorry, nothing.
But yeah.
Nothing I want to share with you, or nothing of great relevance or importance to the world. Just a normal kind of school day. Where it came, I did what I had to do. So I think Albert Einstein's mum, when he got home from school, said, "What questions did you ask in school today, Albert?"
Yeah.
And that's a totally different ballgame.
Totally different. Oh, what was your best mistake today?
Yeah. What went wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. What was your favourite struggle?
Fear of failure into children. The students I work with at the universities, the sort of 17, 18-year-olds, are petrified of failure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I released a blog yesterday all about perfectionism, because that just seems to be something that's just rising in terms of the younger the children are getting in, and their desire to be perfect and their reluctancy to even put pen to paper in case they make a mistake. And it's where those messages are coming from. And do you know what? It was such a learning experience for me. It was like a dissertation. It's like 9,000 words later. But in terms of really coming together with my own mindset and my experiences and the way education is at the minute, it was a real eye-opener for me writing that blog.
And it's this sort of examination mentality, isn't it? That this is the model answer. So
yes.
And that worries me to death. That I think where's the next Michael Morpurgo going to come from if the only poetry's got to be in this kind of analytical, follow this kind of formulaic template and you'll produce a great poem. I'm sure J.K. Rowling didn't sit down writing Harry Potter thinking, I'll follow this kind of GCSE formula Scottish formula. She had a passion, an idea, a thought that's just grew and changed and evolved and modified, and I think that's where we've not got to at the moment, or we're getting away from. I had a student at Ep.4 college that I work at. Great young people there, and she was a Belarusian, and she was applying to Yale, and she wrote this essay, and I critiqued it for her, and she emailed me back, and the subject said, "Still failing at essay writing." So I emailed her back and said, "Daria, do not say failing at essay writing. You're not failing at essay writing. Your essay was magnificent." I said, "I'm just giving you a few ideas, suggestions of how you might like to kind of reframe it a little bit. It's up to you."
Yeah.
It was a great essay. And you're writing it in your fourth language. So she emailed me back and said, "Dear Mr. Garner, I won't put still..." Oh, what she put in the subject this time, "Not failing at essay writing anymore." So she said, "I don't wish to be pedantic," she said, "but English is my fifth language."
Right. Goodness gracious.
And she's criticizing herself because she writes an essay in a fifth language that she doesn't think is perfect.
Yeah.
She's at Yale now. She'll make a difference. She'll change the world.
She will. She definitely will. I mean, in terms of our involvement, we were lucky enough to be involved in your summer festival. You mentioned that we came together and did a presentation for you. What triggered your idea for that online experience?
Yeah, originally Dave Winfield, the founder of ISP, and I were thinking about having a 3-day actual event in Swindon. You know, I mean, why would you not? You know, in Swindon. It was a good location, and we thought this will be a great thing to do, and we would have invited you to that as well. But COVID intervened and meant that we had to kind of rethink it. So I suggested to Dave, and he agreed, that we did it on a virtual format. So we did it over 3 or 4 different days, and that seemed to work really well. We had 4 speakers, of which you and Gemma were one of them, and it was interesting to see the different ways that the 4 people approached it, and each were distinctive and different without you getting together to look at different ways of doing it. And it went really well. It was very successful. So this year we're going to do the 60 sessions in 60 days. That's the plan for this year. Similar format, and again, you'll be invited. And we think that for a variety of reasons, I think we've found that the portal events have gone online, and that a lot of staff have enjoyed that. It's cheaper, it's more cost effective in that respect. There's no travel time. It can often be done at a time when it doesn't impact on the school day. So we tried different times. Some people did them in the morning, and in these 4 sessions, we deliberately chose 4 different times to see which ones were, and none were more successful than others in terms of attendance. But we think that then you can also make them available for people who can't access it at 10 o'clock in the morning, but can probably watch it on YouTube a couple of days later. So we like the format. It seems to work well. It also means, of course, it can go worldwide. It can everybody all over the world. So teachers in Pakistan, Australia, Africa, and Southern America, wherever can access it, either in real time or later on. So keep at the point of delivery. Most of them were, in fact, the ones in the summer were free to the delegates. And that was good. We're probably going to make a small charge for this one to cover the 60 sessions in 60 days, so that we know, we've got a little bit of income to hopefully pay speakers this time, rather than ask them to do it as a generous. And we'll see how that goes. But the portal events at the moment are online, and they seem to be going well. All free to the delegates, and the next working that has happened in the summer festival, a provider does a kind of 10-minute slot, and that helps to pay for the event, meaning the delegates don't have to pay. There's no supply cover, there's no train fare, there's no hotel bill. And
it's all professional development.
And you can have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever you think.
Just chill out and enjoy.
Whatever you want to do.
Now, we're going to have to mention the C word. You've already mentioned it once, but the impact in terms of the educational landscape is massive. So in terms of COVID, it's affected educators in so many different ways, and we're the role models for the children that we teach. Okay, so in your experience as a head teacher and the discussions that you may have had with colleagues, what do you feel are the biggest challenges schools and teachers face at the moment? And where do you think they're best placed to channel their energy and their focus? Because social media gives a platform for discussion and debate. Yeah. And very often we can get ourselves engulfed in that, and it's not always positive. So in terms of the challenges educators face, what are those, and then where should they be channeling their energies, do you feel?
That's a wide-ranging topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just lay my cards on the table. First of all, I've never looked at Facebook, Twitter, or any. I was dragged kicking and screaming to texting, and
looking at you now on online portals.
Look at me, how the mighty have fallen. But I think, as you say, unfortunately, social media is a force for good and a force for discontent as well. And I feel sorry. I'm really pleased I'm not a teacher at the moment, because I think, a bit like Boris Johnson, I mean, I feel for him as well, because I think they're in a heads they lose and tails they don't win scenario. And I think head teachers are in that respect as well. They've got to do the best for the children. They've got to do the best for their community. They've got to do the best for their staff. And there's that fear of infection, the fear of spreading infection. There's that lack of the thing that I think makes schools relevant and important is that socialization, that interaction, that relationship. That I know, elements of touching, but children touching each other. When they go back to school, the inevitable hugs that children give each other, and still to some extent give to teachers as well, and that's all gone. That sort of play, physically robust play that sometimes oversteps the mark, but that's all kind of gone, and we're in these bubbles. I don't know if it's the same in your area there down in the northwest. But the children here in the northeast seem to be sitting in coats and hats and gloves with the windows and the doors open. I'm not quite sure how conducive that is to learning. I'm not quite sure that the learning has taken a step back in terms of, because of the remoteness, the social distancing, the bubbles. We've got children not accessing lab facilities, reduction in physical activities, in sport. Those children that like that, drama, music, choirs. I mean, one of the questions I used to ask visiting prospective parents at King Edward School and at Newcastle School for Boys as well, how many boys sing in the choir at King Edward School? This is when it was an all-boys school, I have to say. How many boys sing in the choir? So this is in the whole school. And they would say, 20, 30, 40, none. Have all those. 600.
Wow.
600 boys sang in the choir at King Edward School.
Wow.
Now, none, because choirs, you can't have a choir. I play a saxophone, but I'm not allowed to play in the band, in my local community band. And I have to say, the local community are deeply relieved about that. But all those opportunities have gone. And I think with the lockdown coming up on Thursday, I think that I heard Robbie Savage, the former sort of soccer player, said that he felt this loss of leisure activities and recreational sport activities and grassroots sport. It was just a monstrous decision. Yeah. And I think he's right, because I think the impact of the children, the uncertainty, I think children need certainty. The thing that school gives them is a certainty of a behavior, a certainty of relationships, of care and compassion and learning, certainty that they'll have certain events, and these have all gone. So the children that are looking forward to Christmas activities, gone. Children that love musical activities, gone. Children that like physical activities, gone. And I think that's a great shame. So I think the schools are doing the best they can, and I sympathise and empathise with them. But I think the focus on, there's going to be a rethink, I hope, about the way we assess children and measure their performance. I always remember, I think it was Professor Macbeath from Strathclyde saying, no child ever got heavier by being weighed. And I think that's true with the exams. When I hear the Secretary of State for Education saying that, GCSEs and A levels are the way of assessing children. Well, I'm sorry, they are a way. they are a powerful way, but they're not the only way, and they're
way.
not necessarily the best way. So I think I'm hoping that will see more more thought given to the way we assess children in terms of continual assessment, of more frequent assessing of essays and exercises and practical activities. Just do it in a much more holistic way.
Yeah. But also see the developing of life skills as being an important part of that. Not assessing life skills, but that should be as in terms of a balanced scale, your academic assessment, but also developing a whole area of skills that they can then take out into the workforce.
Absolutely. And when you think of the when industry are saying these are the things we're looking for in young people, and we're just not getting it, we're getting children who are very good at assimilating some form of accreditation, some form of certification. They're piling up GCSEs and A levels, but they have no what you might call functional skills for the business, the relationships, the ability to debate, discuss, to create, to imagine,
critical thinkers. Yeah.
Constantly looking over their shoulder. And my friend Albert Einstein, again, he said that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've already got. Well, that's where we are. We're just asking children to regurgitate things. Whereas I'd like to set children a practical activity, or and say, look, you've got the computer, you've got access to the library. Come up with you do it now.
You do it.
Using the information you've got at your disposal, because there's so much information out there, so much knowledge. We can't know and remember it all. And I know that many of them will remember bits of, let's say they're doing the poem Ozymandias for their GCSEs, Power and Conflict, and they remember it for the few weeks they need to, and then no interest in Ozymandias as a poet, just interested in trying to remember it, a couple of quotes from it, and whether it used power and conflict, and then forget it.
It's no purpose, has it?
We want children who've got a passion for, and that's what I don't see in children at the moment. Many people would like to, a real genuine passion for something, whether it's learning, whether it be poetry, whether it be drama. There are children there, but I think we need to develop those passions that children have. To follow music and follow sport, and to follow. I did, on the Rocket Learn weekly video, I showed them Amy Williams, who you may not remember, but Amy Williams won the Winter Olympic skeleton bob gold medal by breaking down a rather steep and slippery incline at over 100 miles an hour, about 100 miles an hour. And Gary Lineker, I think it was Gary Lineker, I may be doing a disservice, apologise, Gary, if it wasn't you. He asked her, what does it take to become an Olympic champion in the skeleton bob? And she said 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, 4 years.
Yeah.
Just to go down a slippery slope for 30 odd seconds.
Yeah.
6 days a week, 4 years.
Yeah.
And we need more people who've got that kind of passion, that wanting to shake something until it hurts.
I think we're finding more and more, myself and Gemma refer to it as the Amazon effect. It's almost like it's that expectation of having something quick. So you order a book from Amazon, you order food from Just Eat, and I think we're developing a perspective in education that you're going to get something quickly and it'll happen quickly. And I think that's where that passion is dying, because passion takes time. And I think as learners, children give up so quickly if they don't achieve and get recognition for it.
Yeah, absolutely. What did John F. Kennedy said, didn't he, about when he started the Apollo moon missions? He said, we choose to go to the moon not because it's easy, because it's hard. We choose to go because it's hard.
Yeah.
And as many people have said, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly.
We've really got to inculcate in children that if you want to gain something really significant, you have to work at it. So playing a musical instrument, you've got to practice. That sort of 10,000 hours approach, to be really good at something, you've got to put in 10,000 hours of unstructured practice.
Yeah.
You know, of course, Professor Sir Ken Robinson, the poor old late Professor Sir Ken, who, just a phenomenal person. But he said once that his brother, I think, is a jazz musician, and he was watching his brother playing jazz, and he went up to the pianist, the keyboard player, and said, you know, I really want to be able to play the keyboard really well, you know. And the keyboard player looked at him and said, Ken, no, you don't. He said, yeah, I do. He said, no, Ken, you don't. He said, what you want, you like the idea of being a good keyboard player. If you wanted to be a good keyboard player, you would be.
Yeah.
You don't want it enough.
Yeah.
You've got to really want it. If you want to be really good at it, if you want to be a great soccer player, you know, Alan Shearer here up in Newcastle would say he wasn't the best footballer at Wallsend Boys Club, but he wanted it more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And he was determined to work at the things he had that physicality, the power, the strength, but he worked at the things he wasn't very good at.
Yeah. It's that intrinsic motivation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The table tennis player who writes in the Telegraph now said not only was he not the best, potentially not the best table tennis player in Britain, he was not potentially the best table tennis player in Reading, where he lived. And he said, potentially, I wasn't even the best table tennis player in our street. He said, but I had a table tennis player and I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I had the necessary physical attributes. I had the table tennis table and the bat and the ball, and I wanted it. And I practiced in the garage with my brother, and at school I had a coach, and things came. But if you want it, you've got to work at it.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I mean, you mentioned Rocket Learn a couple of times, and we're super excited to be involved in it. Can you explain a little bit more about what this is and how it's going to work?
During the lockdown, when the children weren't at school, there was obviously a great move towards remote learning, and I think most teachers moved from no experience of remote learning to quite significant experience in a very short period of time. And I think Dave and I were working with a number of children who were off school and wanted a little bit extra. So we started to do some online teaching of children, about 8 or 9 children, some from the school that Dave's girls go to, and others that we knew from friends. And we realized that this was a great opportunity, and this was an opportunity for education to take a kind of different view, that there were plenty of platforms, plenty of programs, plenty of resources out there, so children could have a much more personalized approach to learning, a much more asynchronous approach. They could access it anywhere, anytime. And we originally started to look at developing a hybrid model with a program that would sit alongside their normal school days, and when they were going back to school, and then they could access this program at the weekends or in the holidays, and it would really give some opportunity for them to explore their learning in a deeper way. So we've started off in quite a small way at the moment. So we're offering this program of 3 learning platforms: English, maths, and STEM, basically. So science, technology, engineering, art, and maths. And they do a number of STEAM missions, but it gives them a chance to explore an adaptive learning program. Both the programs are adaptive, so the children do some diagnostic assessments. That gives them a learning pathway, and they can then follow that pathway. The more they do, the more it adapts, and it gives them instant feedback. So every week, they get a report as to how much they've done, what progress they've made, what they need to do to improve, other sort of, and Dave and I meet each of the youngsters for half an hour each week. And we're going to roll this out into schools. There's at the moment working with individuals, just piloting it with individuals, make sure it works. We do a weekly broadcast. I do it, and it has a kind of, so this week, for example, we did an introductory video about human achievement. I do a bit of a talk about thunks. I don't know if you've come across.
Oh, I love thunks. Yeah, get you thinking, thunks.
What we were saying earlier, the one this week is if there was a magic pill that meant you could
never fail.
And so that's the thunk of this week. And then we look at a particular aspect in a bit more detail. So this week was Sir David Attenborough and Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer, about saving the planet. And I don't know if you've come across the 16-year-old girl, Bella Lack, who's a kind of British equivalent of Greta Thunberg.
All right.
But she's well worth having a look at in terms of her approach to saving the planet and conservation. So we try to have a theme each week, and then we're having a series of webinars in January and February and March and so on, of which you're going to be one of the presenters.
Yeah.
So a webinar for children, more about activities and how they can improve their learning and what they might like to try different things. So we're doing an esports one, we're doing a coding one, we're doing a magic. The first one for children is on magic.
Wow.
Latvia, who's doing a magic show for them and then giving them some activities in magic to do. You, of course, to how they can improve their approach to learning. And we're going to do summer, Easter and Christmas schools, which will be free to children as well. So children who are on our program and the schools that are on our program can access teaching each day in English and maths and science. The downside for some children is that I'll be doing some of them. So, but we're not going to say in case they turn off. But so, do
you ever stop, Phil? Does your wife ever see you?
Well, she says I don't do enough around the house, basically. No, she's really good. She's very, very supportive. And to say my son's working for the company at the moment because he's a bit of a technical whiz. He's
right.
The website and social media, and his girlfriend is working as well. So they're kind of working in tandem with us to get it going. And I think it'll be very successful. And I think if schools are inevitably, not going to be the same again ever, I don't think. So I think it will work alongside schools, give an added program that they can use for the children. And for those children, there was a great program on Radio 4 this morning, Bringing Up Britain. I don't know if you've been listening to it, but today it was about homeschooling.
Right.
And so I think there's going to be an increasing number of children who will be homeschooled, either because of a fear of COVID or other things, a natural dissatisfaction sometimes with the education that's provided. Children, as you mentioned, who've got anxieties about school at the moment. So I think that will increase. And so ultimately we'd like to do make it into a complete kind of school program for children who don't go to school, as well as those children who do go and just want a little extra thing.
I mean, there's definitely a platform. The landscape at this moment in time and for the future, there is definitely a platform for that rocket learn approach. Yeah.
I think the good thing about it, the thing that's impressed me is it's this adaptiveness, the fact that it adapts to the children's learning. I know I've been guilty of it myself when children have mastered a task in a class. As a reward for mastering that task, they often get given more of that.
More of it.
Which kind of rather inhibits them from putting, to showing that they've actually mastered it. So this then says, right, now you've done that, now try this.
Yeah.
This is a little harder, or this is different,
Yeah.
But it's different way of looking at it. So giving children a chance to think, and children a chance to question and ask, and also personalize it so it's them and their learning, and they can have control over it.
Yeah.
I've always felt children need flexibility and choice. When I was teaching at Newcastle School for Boys, I gave a group of children, including my own son who was in the class. I used to teach RE at Newcastle School for Boys. As a head, it gave me a chance to meet every boy in the school once a week, and so I really enjoyed that. And so I set them a challenge. And oh, there's my phone ringing. Look at that.
Oh, it's all right.
And I never know how to stop it. See, I'm a technical whiz.
I'm loving the music.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought I could.
Bit of classical interlude there.
Where was I?
Going into classes.
I was teaching RE, and it was around Easter time. So I said to the boys, we've been looking at the last 7 days of Christ's time on earth, from when he rode into Jerusalem. These were kind of 9-year-olds, to when he was crucified and rose on Easter Monday. So I'd like you to, over the Easter holiday, do a project on that, and you can do it in any way, shape or form that you like. So straight away, all the hands go up. Please, Mr. Garner, yes. Can I do a picture? Yes, you can do it in any way, shape or form you like. Sir, yes. Can I do a film? Yes, you can do it in any way, shape or form. Sir, can I do... Look, boys, what are you not getting here? So they did it in any way, shape or form that they like. And the results were magnificent.
Yeah.
They were outstanding because they had flexibility and they had choice.
Yeah.
And one boy, I won't give his name, but his name was Hugh. And if I'd said to him, write an essay on the last 7 days of Christ, Hugh would have put his hand up, and the question would have been, sir, yes, how long does it have to be?
Yeah.
That would have been his only interest. And if I'd said 200 words, he would have written exactly 200 words.
Yeah.
And then put a full stop. But he did a painting that Michelangelo would have been proud of.
Yeah.
And I said to him, how long did that take you, Hugh? And he said, the whole holiday. He said, I spent virtually every moment I wasn't doing something else doing this. And other boys did a film with outtakes at the end. The outtakes of just incredible. You know, the Roman soldier who hit his thumb with the hammer when he was nailing Christ to the cross, and watching him jumping around. And outtakes.
Yeah.
It was absolutely phenomenal because they had flexibility and they had choice. And too often we say to children, do this in this way and you'll get this result. And I'll give you a tick and you'll get an A star, and everything will be perfect.
Yeah.
It won't.
It won't.
It will.
No. Gosh, you've just shed light on so many things in education at the minute. We need you at the helm down at down at Westminster.
The question I often ask people is, you know, what would education look like if so and so was in charge? You know, if Marcus Rashford was in charge of education, what would it look like? If David Attenborough was in charge of education, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And instead, we get people like Michael Gove in charge. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Cringe.
I just totally despair. But
yeah, it is. So if people want to find out more about Rocket Learn or getting in touch, what should they do?
They can get in touch with me if I give you my email address. It's Phil at bluecoweducation.com. Bluecoweducation.com, that's the overarching company. Or rocketlearn.co.uk will get you straight onto the website.
Brilliant.
And we'd love to hear from any teachers that are interested, either because they might like their school to take part in it or find out a little bit more about it. They can always, as you hear, they can call me anytime. Really.
Yeah. Can parents get involved in any way?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I think ultimately it's going to be parents that will
hook in,
engage with this as much as schools. I think it will be those.
Just like to say a big thank you to Phil for taking the time to come and chat with us today. Thoroughly enjoyed the interview. I hope you did too. Take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon. Bye.